In this video, I will give you an introduction to the reading exam. First, let me give you some useful information about the exam. The exam takes 65 minutes. In these 65 minutes, you will have to answer 25 multiple choice questions. This means that you averagely have 2.5 minutes per question. However, you decide yourself how much time you spend per question. You would probably spend more time on a difficult question and less time on an easy question. However, you are in control of how much time you spend per question. From these 25 questions, 18 of them must be correct in order to pass the exam. The exam will have approximately 10 texts. Sometimes it can be 9, sometimes 11 or 12, but always around 10 texts. Per text, there will be 2 or 3 questions. And finally, as you may know, the level of the texts and the questions is A2. Next, I will tell you a bit more about the interface of the exam. In the top of the screen, you see the texts. In this exam, there were 11 texts, and below the text, you see the numbers of the questions, which are always 25. You can also see that for each text, there are either 2 or 3 questions, except for text 5 and 6. And the reason for that is because the main persons in the questions are 2 different persons. But that's a technical detail, but it's a reason for the makers of the exam to make it look like there are 2 different texts. But 5 and 6 are actually one and the same texts. Okay, what else do we see? Next, you see on the top left, there is a context description of the text, and also it says what the source is. It says here, in een tijdschrift staan tips om gezond te leven, meaning in a magazine there are tips to live a healthy life. Below this context description, there are always these 2 sentences. It says, lees eerst de vraag, first read the question, lees daarna de tekst, then read the text. This instruction must be followed because it is the best and most effective way to solve an exam question. You should first go to the question and then move to the text. Then below the context description, there is obviously the text itself. Yeah, and on the top right, there is the question. Below the question, you have the possible multiple choice answers. And if you think that you know the answer to a question, you just click on it. It will get a frame around it. And if you want to go to the next question, you click at the right below on volgende. It could be that a question is difficult, or you just don't know for sure what the answer is. In that case, you can leave it open and click on volgende without selecting one of the answers. You can always move back by clicking on vorige. I will now give you some more information about the types of text that you can expect on the exam. There are actually 2 groups of texts. The first group are the text to everybody. A text to everybody could be an article in a folder like we have just seen in the interface of the exam. So there are texts that are not addressed to a certain person or a certain group of people. They are just for everybody to read. And based on the previous exams, we can set out a couple of subcategories of these kinds of text. And we have seen it in previous exams, we have seen more than once text about something new in the neighborhood. So this could be a new bus or maybe a new playground for children. Yeah? Or there can also be text about job offers. So it could be about a shop that is looking for new people to work for them, maybe new sales representatives, and they have written out a job offer, and the text will be about that. There have also been texts, so you could also expect that there can be a text about course information. Could be a French course or a cooking course. Then finally, we have the texts that are about tips, like the text that I showed you on the interface, so the tips how to live a healthy life. There could also be a text about, for example, about tips how to sleep better, something like that. A nice advantage about the text to everybody is that they often include headers. So this can help you navigate and make it easier for you to get to the right part of the text where you can find the answer to the question. The second group of types of texts are the messages. So these texts are addressed to a certain person or to a certain group of people. Yeah. And first of all, let's have a look at the subcategories of these messages. we have the practice to the patient. So this could be, for example, a doctor's practice. So a doctor is informing his or her patient that an appointment has been cancelled. Yeah. Then there are also texts about neighbors who are sending an email or another type of message to their neighbors. Maybe a neighbor has organized a certain event and he or she wants to inform the neighbors what he or she has done and give other information about that. Then you have the manager to the employees. So it could be that the manager is sending an email to the employees and asking them when they are taking their vacations. And finally, the colleague to colleague. Maybe a colleague has organized something for another colleague because this other colleague is having his birthday or the other colleague is leaving the company. So this person wants to inform the rest of the colleagues about giving a present or something like that. Yeah, so about the messages, these usually do not include headers. So that makes it a bit less easy to navigate compared to the text to everybody. I will now tell you a bit more about the questions that you can expect on the exam. First of all, above each text it says lees eerst de vraag, first read the question, lees daarna de tekst, then read the text. This is an important instruction because by going to the question first and then moving to the text, this is the most efficient way to solve an exam question. Answers to the question can often be found chronologically in the text. So you will often see that the answer to question 1 is somewhere a bit more in the beginning of the text, the answer to question 2 a bit further in the text than the answer to question 1, and the answer to question 3 is a bit further in the text than the answer to question 2. It is often like this. However, please don't expect that it's always like that because sometimes they can mix that up a little. So don't assume that it's always going to be in a chronological order. Next, I'll tell you a little bit more about the question types. In this course, we talk about 3 different question types. First of all, we have the keyword questions. And keyword questions, they are where there is an important word or several important words in the question or in the multiple choice answers that you will be linking to certain words in the text and finding the answer in that way. Then there are the table questions. And in the table questions, there is a table in the text and the question will be about the table. So they'll be asking you to find certain information from the table. And finally, we have the difficult questions. In this course, we talk about 2 groups of difficult questions. First of all, the questions where the answer is not explicitly in the text and where the answer is spread out through the text. Finally, I will tell you a bit more about the clock, so the timing of the exam. And as I mentioned before, you will have 65 minutes to complete the exam. So that gives you averagely 2.5 minutes per question. However, this doesn't mean that you must solve each question in 2.5 minutes. You can decide for yourself how much time you want to spend on each question. And in the exam, you will see that there are easy questions where you can quickly find the answers and difficult questions. So the difficult questions, you might need some more time to find the answer. And the important thing is not to get stuck for a long time on one question. A question might be difficult, you might not know the answer, but you can always go back to it later. Yeah, so don't get stuck too long on a question, because by doing that, you might miss the opportunity to give a lot of correct answers to easy questions. And a reading strategy is really important in that, because if you apply the reading strategy that you will learn in this course, so you use keywords to find the answer, that way you should be able to find the correct answers to the easy questions quite quickly. And that will give you more time to solve the more difficult questions.